The crash site is about 2 kilometres away in a deep cutting through a hill. Access is very difficult, one reason why rescuers had trouble reaching the wreck. The 4-carriage Tangara was this morning's 6:24 service from Central to Port Kembla. Up to 80 passengers were aboard when it came off the tracks.
First pictures revealed disaster on a massive scale. Torn and shattered carriages strewn along a 150-metre stretch of the main southern line. Several victims were thrown from the wreckage, found lying beside the track, others wandering dazed. First rescuers to arrive radioed for urgent help.
I want about 4 to 6 doctors and 4 to 6 paramedics, and I don't want anyone who's not used to working in this sort of environment. Over.
The lead Tangara carriages badly mangled but still upright, the trailing pair on their sides. The train driver at the very front was among those killed.
I understand the driver was deceased.
As rescue workers rushed to help, others struggled to smash their way inside to find those still trapped. This woman's daughter escaped with minor cuts.
They said that there was people everywhere and dead people.
Dozens of casualties were given colour-coded tags and led away to a temporary field hospital. Some could walk with help, many others, seriously injured, had to be carried on stretchers.
And a total of 29 green patients, 20 of whom we are trying to remove from the site in a bus.
We believe we transported 15 people in a serious condition. As I say, there are at least 9 people who are deceased.
The 624 from Central came to grief on a sweeping left-hand curve in the Royal National Park, about 4 kilometres south of Waterfall Station. 200 tonnes of metal, travelling around 50 kilometres an hour, slammed into an unyielding rock wall.
The metal along the side has been torn apart as it's careered along the wall. It's a real disaster down there.
It happened about 7:30, the train bound for the steel town of Port Kembla. It often carries students for Wollongong University, now on holidays. Today, about 70 to 80 passengers were aboard. Survivors used mobile phones to call for help, but it was delayed by the isolation of the scene, the only vehicle access a dirt track. Army personnel carriers were called in case they were needed. They weren't. The first paramedics were dropped in by helicopter. Police, ambulance, fire and SES workers followed on foot, many lugging heavy equipment. They threw up ladders, dropping inside, frantically searching for those trapped.
Very horrific. It's probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's really shocking.
Many were treated inside the wreckage where they were found. It took up to 4 hours for some to be released. Rescue crews have been here for several hours and are still removing bodies from the wreckage. Their task made particularly difficult because of the rough terrain surrounding the site.
Our thoughts must be with the families bracing themselves for the worst possible news.
The government's promised to find out quickly what went wrong. What is known, the lead carriages derailed. They brought down at least one stanchion carrying overhead power lines before slamming into a rock face. One theory, that yesterday's heatwave distorted the tracks, but 3 trains had already used the same stretch this morning without mishap.
The mother of a Sydney boy killed in a hit-run accident in April has made a final appeal for the driver to come forward. The police task force investigating the death of Bryce Rolls will be disbanded unless there's a breakthrough soon.
2 months after 8-year-old Bryce was killed, his mum Carolyn is struggling to cope.
Our lives are never the same. They will never, ever be the same.
She can't grieve properly because her son's killer hasn't been found.
We just need answers. We just need the person to come forward.
Bryce, who was loved for his big smile, was run down in April as he crossed a road near his Cogra home. The driver didn't stop.
Every day we think about him and, I look at his little picture and I have a little weep and think, it's just sad a little boy had to face such an awful death.
Police say they've checked every possible lead without luck. They'll disband their task force unless they're given new information.
Despite the passing of time, teddy bears still mark the spot where Bryce was killed, and the fact the memorial is growing shows how much he was loved.
Carolyn says the pain of losing Bryce will never go away, but if the driver is found, it may ease just a little.
Someone's got to come forward and just make all this thing right, because my children are suffering. We're all suffering.
Clinton Maynard, 7 News.